Welcome to the 30-Minute Growth Session, the show where transformation takes center stage. Hosted by me, Dr. Lisa L. Campbell, the Growth Motivator. Each week, we bring you dynamic guests who are all sharing actionable insights to empower your personal and professional journey. Are you ready to grow? Let's get started with today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another 30-minute growth session. It's a new year, and I hope that you all are doing well. I am, of course, Dr. Lisa L. Campbell. I am known as the Growth Motivator, and I'm so excited to present our guest today, Ataria, like Atari, for those of you who are old schoolers. Ataria Parkinson is here today to talk about a lot of things growth. In fact, before we started recording, I said to myself, this could be growth session part 1, 2, and 3, but we only have 30 minutes for today. So let's dig into today's session. Hi, Ataria. How are you?
I'm good. Dr. Lisa, how you doing?
I am great. I'm happy
Awesome.
for a new year.
Oh, so excited. 2025, bring it on.
Yes. Listen, I got my boxing gloves up. I am ready to
Ooh.
fight.
Yes, I love it.
So, tell our listening, viewing audience a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. Well, hi, everyone out there listening again. My name is Atara Parkinson, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And people always kind of pause and are like, what does that mean? Well, it just means that when I was doing my master's, I received some extra education in family dynamics, child development, couples work, all that fun stuff. And so that was what I studied in my graduate program. And from there, I got to go into the field and go get my hours. And through that, I had a lot of really diverse, really wonderful experiences. I worked with small children and parents in play therapy dynamics and parent coaching. I worked with emancipated foster youth, so girls that had were getting out of the foster system but didn't really have the tools that they needed to get into life, and so we are transitional housing for them, and we really helped them with the skills and some trauma processing, all sorts of stuff in there. I got to work with lifers, so men that were incarcerated under a life sentence, and also were being released, and we were helping them transition back into society. So, all sorts of fun stuff. Then, as I got into private practice in my later years, got to work with a lot of anxiety ridden children. And this wasn't a specialty I was trying to develop. You know, you just get one and then parents recommend you, and all of a sudden I have this practice full of anxious kiddos and working with their parents. And so that really became a focus and specialty of mine in the last about 7 years.
Wow, you have so many lanes that you've
I really
operated
do.
in.
Yeah.
But honestly, you know what I think about the value of that is that you could
Mm.
be seeing someone for the first time and they
Mhm.
go down a path and you just reach back and pull out some experience from 5 years ago that you put in your toolkit. And so that's
Mm.
amazing.
Yeah,
That
it
is
is really fun. It's really fun. And I think by getting such a broad range of clients and people that I've worked with, you learn what is human, right? Just the ways that we all struggle as humans, our, values, our existential thoughts, like what am I here for? What's my purpose? How do I reach that? How do I get in alignment with that? That's kind of, I think, what at the end of the day, what we're all searching for out there. And so it's been really fun to see that show up in very different populations.
wow. So tell us a little bit about you personally. So are you a
Yeah.
mom?
I am. Yes, great question. So, yes, I'm a mama of four, and my kiddos are still young. They are 8, about to be 7, 5, and 2. So, we have a busy
Did you say
household.
two? Oh, that
Two.
two. That two is fun.
Oh, girl, she is coming into her voice. So, and I find that the more older siblings you have, the earlier this starts, right? Because they're watching everybody else, and so she's very vocal right now about her opinions and her needs, and so it's really fun. We also homeschool, so that adds a whole other dynamic of being able to be involved in their life, which is such a blessing for us. But it adds some other tricky components and components as us as parents of, am I doing this right? Right. Am I teaching them enough? Are we getting enough information in? But it also gives us the freedom and flexibility to meet each child with where they're at. So, my oldest and my second born are completely different kiddos. And my oldest is very methodical, slower to move. He's does not want to make mistakes, very concerned with that. So that's his mindset. My second is my fast and furious kiddo, right? Kind of bouncing off the walls, really moves really quickly, wants to get all the things done by herself, independent. And so homeschooling allows us to like meet each of their personality styles very in different ways because they're just different kiddos. But it's a lot of fun.
Oh, I love that. So, two things that came to mind for me. So, one, your youngest daughter, who is very vocal. I remember when I was younger in elementary school, on my
Mm.
report card, they would say, talks too much in class, right?
Yes.
And I grew up in that age where you were seen and not heard.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I think, when I went to school, that was like my opportunity to speak. But I think
Mhm.
that when we don't allow people to have a voice, they
Mm.
lose their voice.
Yes.
And you want to be able to advocate for yourself, which means you
Yes.
have to have a voice, right? So,
Absolutely.
you know
Yes.
what? I think it's okay if they have a voice. And this is me, grandma, saying that, who doesn't have to deal with the 2-year-old. But I do think it's important for them to have a voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And within reason, we try to let her have that, but we also try to shape it, right? Because it can get a little extra sass at times. But I love what you're saying too, because I think children today often get into this mindset of, I don't have agency. I lack personal agency. And this can get really overwhelming, even for a 2-year-old, all the way down to two. We start to see this need for control. And so, as much as we can, we let her, for example, this morning, it was a good example. I want to wear this. Right now, we're up in Montana. It's cold up here, right? It's the middle of winter. We can't wear shorts, baby girl, right? But here are the pants options, and to let her choose those things. Because when we feel like we have control in our life, children start to develop the mindset of, I make things happen versus things just happen to me. And that we talked about mindset before we started recording, right? About in all stages of life. And that starts so early. And it's important to start developing the right mindset, even at the age of 2.
You know what I love about your kids being homeschooled
Mm.
is that, so some people will say, well, what about socially? Well, let me just tell you, with 3 other siblings, I'm sure social is over the top, right?
There's
But
plenty.
I
Yep.
I think that the early years, those formative years,
Mhm.
building that strong sense of self, that strong mindset will help them when they get to the real world, because that's all they will know, as
Mhm.
opposed to being influenced by
Mhm.
others' households when they
Yep.
go to, the public school setting.
Yep.
So now I will say I'm one of two
Mm.
that grew up in my household with my mother, and then my father had 2 more children.
Okay.
But my mom was a single parent. She couldn't homeschool us. And I
Mm.
will I will tell you though, when I got to high school, I was like, I just need to get out of here. I want to
Mhm.
earn money. And
Uh-huh.
so when I turned 16, I was like, I am getting a job. I got a job. I was a manager at McDonald's, and
Uh-huh.
the rest is history.
Mhm.
But I wonder what life would have been like if I would
Mm.
have been homeschooled. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard this, but back in the day, the parents would say, "Well, you're learning stuff that we don't know, so we can't
Mm.
really." I had to lean on my aunts and uncles
Mm.
for math and science, and
Mm.
so I don't know. But hey, you can't repeat history, so all you got to do is just move forward. And we
Just
didn't
move forward.
homeschool our children; they turned out just fine.
Yep.
So
Yep, there's many ways to do it, right? I think each way has pluses and minuses. And I love what you pointed out. We definitely get a lot of socialization, right? They have a co-op and we have activities outside of the home, But also, there is sometimes the limitations that I have as a parent. And I have to be able to recognize that and then get them the support they need. But that could easily become, right? We could easily become stuck in there, right? If I'm not good at math, well, I just don't know. And that's the end of the story, instead of reaching out and getting support. And that's really shame based, right? Isolation is dictated by shame. So I really have to get over myself and see my own deficits in order to get them what they need.
So sometimes you have to tell the kids, like, okay, wait, mom needs a moment.
Absolutely. Yes.
And what do they do? What do they do, or what do they say?
I think they really much understand. And I have the blessing of understanding that within the relationship of emotions, because that's what I do day in and day out with clients at my job, of when we're frustrated, right? When we need a moment, not saying I always do it perfectly, but how can we handle that? And how can we model that? First of all, that's okay. Right. I'm human as a parent, just as you're human as a kiddo, and I get frustrated. And I'm going to try my best to model for you how to handle that emotion, so that it doesn't end up, first of all, we don't want to totally ignore it because we all know that has consequences. But also, I don't want to let it necessarily dictate and guide everything in my surroundings. And this is what I call wisdom, right? Is the rational and emotional mind coming together, honoring both simultaneously. And how can I do that? So, I think they really are used to, when I'm struggling, seeing me request a minute. My older two definitely know, okay, just leave mom alone for a sec. She needs to catch her breath. My younger two are, they're 5 and 2, so that's not fully there yet. But they're definitely learning, and so I think they can see or watch us do that, and they do that themselves. Even that's what my 2-year-old will do recently, which cracks me up. Is a great example. She'll say, "Go away, mama," and that's a little sassy for me, but she will take herself to her room and lay in her bed for a minute, calm herself down. She'll walk herself there and then come on back out when she's a little more calm, and then we'll repair from there. But it's really cute to see.
Oh my God. So something that I was just thinking about is,
Mhm.
I believe growing up, my parents, my aunts, uncles, I never really saw them show a lot of
Mhm.
emotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's problematic, because it's
Mhm.
okay to not be okay, right? But
Right.
you need to be able to ask for help. But I
Mhm.
think when a kid sees a parent where it looks like all is well 24/7, that's
Mhm.
sending mixed signals.
Yeah, well, it's inauthentic, isn't it? It's not
Yes.
authentic to how life really is. And so you're right. If we can show some of our frustrations, our sometimes I'll even talk things out loud, which I think is really helpful for them. I'll say statements like, "Oh, let's say something spilled," and I will try to take a deep breath, and not holler, and say, "Gosh, this is really frustrating for me. I need to fill in the blank to help myself calm down." Sometimes it's putting on music and shaking my body, right? Sometimes it's just going like a kind of, I don't say guttural scream because that seems a little dramatic, but just a sigh, a heavy sigh, like, oh, right? Just letting
Woo!
that, yes, exactly. Getting that out of the body. Because here's the thing, emotion is energy in the body. And if we are ignoring that, if we are pushing that down, if we are disconnecting from that, guess what? That energy does not have an opportunity to go anywhere. It stays in the body. And
I
then,
love it.
yes, and we know from the ACEs study in the early 2000 adverse childhood experiences that those then experiences or traumas that get held in the body end up being sickness and turning into disease even. So there's a literal scientific correlation there. And so we know we don't want to ignore, we don't want to push down, we don't also want to let that reign and rule over our existence. So, how can I deal with this in a healthy fashion, and then model, like we were saying, that growth mindset? And this doesn't dictate our whole day now, just because the milk spilled, right? We can move through this adversity, and we're going to be okay.
Yeah, so that old statement, "Don't cry over spilled milk," is taking it to the next level, right? Okay,
Right.
spilled the milk, clean it up,
Mhm.
move
Mhm.
on.
Yes, absolutely. And some days I might cry over it. Right? I might have a real moment over the spilled milk, and that's okay, right? Some days I won't. Some days we're feeling more energetic, we're feeling more regulated, and I'm going to have the best response possible. It just depends.
Awesome. So listen, I have a question because I know some
Mhm.
people they like to say, what are initials? What tell our listening viewing
Oh,
audience what is the M or the LMFT?
yeah, so the MA is just the Master's in Arts in Counseling Psychology. That's my degree. And then LMFT stands for Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. So it's a long title, it's a lot to write. So I like the initials better because it's more simple.
So what does that allow you to be able to do? I mean, we know the name, like marriage and
Mhm.
family, but what do you actually focus on?
I love it. So in my practice, so it's therapy, right? Mental health therapy
Oh, wait a
is.
minute. People don't like the word
Oh, we don't. We
therapy.
don't? Oh, okay. Tell me. I don't know
So,
that.
there's the stigma with going
Mm.
to therapy when I believe everybody needs a therapist, everybody needs a
Mm.
coach.
Mhm. Yes,
Everybody.
yes. I love that. At some point, right? Yeah, at some point we all could use a mirror, and that's really my job. And I think people think therapists give advice. I know I thought that before I started, and really that's not at all what therapy is about. Therapy is about a process. Therapy is about someone to just help you look in that mirror in a way that maybe you're not capable of or haven't done before. And the beauty of it is that I get to be a neutral person. Is of course I care about you. Of course I want the best for you, and I care about the decisions you make. And also, they don't impact me in a sense, meaning I am not connected to them because I am not in your life 24/7. And so, in that way, I can give a different viewpoint, perhaps, than some people in people who are actually connected, like a parent, right? I would care very much about what my children choose, and I'm personally invested in those decisions, where I have a really unique role. And it's kind of this a really, I tell my clients, it's a strange relationship where I care very much and I'm very invested, and also in a way not invested in your life because they're your decisions to make. And so I just kind of help people put a light on that path of when I'm struggling maybe with a choice or how to get through something. I just get to shine a light on it, and well, let's look at this one and let's look at this one, and we go from there.
Wow. So it's so funny. So 4 years ago, I had a different therapist. And
Mm,
so we were talking about the fact that I was teaching at this university, but I was also operating my business. And I
okay.
said to her, I was telling her all the things that were going on, right? And so she was
Mm,
just listening. And I was talking, and I was like, what really needs to happen is I need to quit this job. I need to focus on my business, growing my
mm,
business. And so she listened and she said, and I was like, "What?" She said, "It sounds like you already know what you need
mm,
to do, and you've
mhm,
already put the wheels in motion to do it.
mm.
So what's next?" And I said, "Well, that's what I'm here to find out from you." And she was like, "You know what
Yes.
you need to
Yes,
do.
ma'am.
So what's next?" And so then I started
Mhm.
talking again, and she started smiling and was like, "You got this." So I think,
Mm.
it's that mirror of,
Yeah.
yeah, you've thought it through, like
Mhm.
forwards and backwards. You know what you need to do.
Mhm.
Next step is to just do it. So
Yeah.
I don't see her anymore, but I need to
Mm.
find her and tell her 2 years
Aw.
ago
Oh my
that
gosh.
I quit the job
Yes.
on entrepreneurship full time, but
Yeah.
it was that being vulnerable to
Mhm.
tell someone else your business. And
Yep.
one of the things that I love about this 30-minute growth session is that we do not know each other. We literally
Mhm.
saw each other for the first time, 5 minutes before we started recording, and we're just here having this conversation like we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, it's the
But
best.
I'm able to do that. You're able to do that.
Mm,
Number one, we're walking in our purpose. We
yeah.
believe in being authentic, but
Yes.
we also believe in being vulnerable. So
Such a good
many of us walk around with this mask
yeah.
on,
Yeah.
right? And they're not showing up as them true selves. And
Yeah.
I know from experience
Mm,
that if you don't show up as your true self,
mm,
don't let it out. It
mm.
builds up and it leads to you being in a state
Yeah.
that you don't want to necessarily be in. And for some people, it's hard to recover from.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah.
got to let it out.
Yes, you're totally right. And in one of my presentations, one of my workshops, we talk about the 5 keys to resilience. And one of those keys are we go from, as a small child, being original, right? You think of that 5 year old that walks out with, the tutu and the fireman hat and the mismatched socks, and like, here I am, world, right? Like, totally unabashed by who they are. And that's such a beautiful thing. But also, as we get older, that starts to disappear and it starts to shift. And that superpower of being original starts to get transformed into being feeling like we need to camouflage, feeling like we need to hide, to cover up who we really are, to cover up our true feelings. And it's sad, right? But when we can reconnect with that, that empowers us, right? And we're reminded. I heard it said this way when I was a teenager: why are you hiding the gift that you are to the world? And I was like, whoa, because no one can be the gift that you are. The gift that you are, Dr. Lisa, is a gift nobody else can be, because there literally is not another one of you on this world, on this
Oh my
planet.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really was convicting for me, because I realized too, not only was I robbing myself of being that gift, but I was also robbing everybody else that I was going to interact with when I hid myself from being that gift for them as well.
You listen, you have stirred up some emotions in
Oh,
me because
mm,
I think back to I wrote my first book in 2023.
okay.
It's titled Grow With Me.
Mm,
And in the introduction to the book, I talk about 5-year-old Lisa,
mm,
who was in kindergarten. Her
mhm.
father left her there because he was asleep. He was working overnight. And
Okay.
so 5-year-old Lisa said, you can get home because you want to watch Sesame Street and just walk the same way that daddy drives the car on the sidewalks. And
Oh,
I walked home and
wow.
then I rang the doorbell and I was like, hi, daddy. Right. And he was like shocked to see me.
Yeah.
But I realized through that writing the book, self
Mm,
reflection, that at 5 years old, I was a leader. I
mhm.
made decisions and
Yeah.
I had to bring that 5-year-old version out of
Mhm.
myself back to the
Mhm.
forefront because
Mhm.
that's how I was going to be able to help
Mm,
others. So
mm.
that is so emotional because you don't think about those things
No.
until you do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, those aren't things that we walk around just like in our conscious mind, right? There are things that you have to kind of be willing to sit with yourself and bring up. That's what therapy sometimes is. It's giving yourself space to look at those things. Not saying that that's the only way to do it, but yeah, you're absolutely right. We have to give ourselves space to reconnect with those parts of us. And I love what you're saying, because that's often what I do with clients is when we're talking around an issue, I sometimes can get the sense that it's them at another age. And I'll say, "What? How old are you feeling right now?" And they'll kind of be shocked for a second and go, "Wait, yeah, you're right. I am this whatever 7-year old, 11-year old where I was facing a lot of teasing or bullying at school, and I'm still holding on to that in a sense. And I'm still that little kid sometimes inside and letting that dictate or guide my life. And we want to connect with that, but we also want to utilize that, talk to that part of ourselves to heal that part so that now it's an attribute to us like it was for you instead of a hindrance.
Wow, wow. So listen, we only have about 7 minutes
You're right.
left.
It flew
We could
by.
talk for hours,
Yes,
right?
we could.
So I would like for you to share with our listening, viewing audience 3 tips for growth.
Mm,
What
whoa.
comes to mind? And I know I know just from meeting you today, I know you have more than 3,
There's so many. Yes.
but what are your top 3?
Yeah, let's see. So, one right off the bat, I would say, and we kind of hit on this a little bit, is understanding that your body and mind are connected. They are not separate entities, and we can even say our spirit or soul too. And we have to have complete healing. We need to hit all these 3 simultaneously, ideally, for healing. And so when you're finding yourself, like we talked about, going back to maybe an early childhood memory that's holding you back, or you're finding yourself anxious, or you're finding yourself stuck in a mindset, my recommendation would be to get out of your head for a minute and check in with the body. Yeah. Check
Oh, wait.
in.
I have to
Yeah.
pause for a second. So
Yeah.
checking in with the body,
Yep.
maybe like a body scan.
A body scan's a great way to go. Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
And that's actually, I love that because I had a client come in the other day. I could tell within a second she was very disconnected. She's got a lot of stress. It's the holidays on top of it. And I said, "How are you feeling?" She's like, "Yeah, I don't, right." And I said, "All right, let's just pause and let's feel in our body, right? What is our body sending to us? What message does it want to tell us right now?" And so you just start at the crown of your head, just gently, just notice all the way down, jaws. Is there tension? Is there anything being held there? Go to your lower jaw, right? Just release, let that melt kind of like butter down into your neck and your throat. Are there any sensations in there? Tightness, tingling. Feel the top of your shoulders. Is there tension? Just let them hang down to the sides and into your arms. Notice your chest as it rises and falls with your breath. Just bring your awareness down to your stomach. Feel that also rise with your chest as that breath of life goes in and out of you. Feel your bottom on the chair that you're sitting in. Let those muscles release and hang loose. Feel the tops of your legs. There's sensation there, any tightness. Just let those muscles go as well as they melt into that chair. Feel your knees and your hamstrings and your feet as they are connected to the earth. And that's it. Simple.
That was not planned, but let me just tell you.
You went right into that, girl. I was like, let's do this then.
Listen, because I've done the work,
Mm-hmm.
and when I first did it, I said, I don't feel anything. But
Mm.
then when I started practicing, I
Mm-hmm.
literally found myself suspended. And
Mm.
that's the vulnerability part, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I can start to feel it from my head to
Yeah.
my toes.
Yes.
Having gone through physical therapy for my ankle
Mm.
fracture, when
Right.
they told me to, move flex your foot, and then they said, make the alphabet with your foot, like A, B. I was like, okay, let's go into body scan mode. But initially, my foot was very stiff.
Mm.
But the more I did it, the more I visualized myself. I literally was in physical therapy with my
Mm.
eyes closed,
Mm.
seeing the alphabet and then drawing it
Mm-hmm.
with my foot.
I love it.
So, okay.
Right. Well practiced.
Yes,
Okay, that's
yes.
one.
So that's one.
That's one. Let's do this one next because this is a really practical one. If you're getting stuck in a what if, like, what if this is going to happen? It's a common one. What if this? What if this? What if this? Okay, let's take that what if and let's break it down into What's the worst case scenario? What is the worst what if that you're imagining here? Now, if you're working with your kiddos, it might be, what if I get up in my presentation and I forget all the words? Right? That's the worst what if. And then everyone's laughing at me. What if that happens? And then we're going to take that and we're going to make a plan. If that happens, here's what you're going to go to. You're going to go to your board that you're doing in your presentation, and you're going to start with this picture, and that's going to jumpstart you again and get you rolling, right? Or how are you going to handle it, right? You can make up your own scenario. What is the best case scenario? So getting up for your presentation, what's the best thing that can happen? Oh my gosh, it could go great, and my teacher could stand up and say A plus plus immediately, right? That's the best case scenario. And then what's the most likely scenario here? But we can also use this as adults, right? We can use this as, what if something were to happen to my kiddo? Right? Or what if this situation came about? How would I handle this? And then feeling like we have a plan for each of those scenarios. Because what if is a natural thing for our brains to do. We're human. But where we can get stuck is if we don't have, if we just keep what ifing and we don't feel like we have a plan to move through that. So
Oh my
there you go.
gosh.
That's
I use that technique. So
yes.
I am a professional speaker, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, so number one, I don't like having a script, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm up speaking and I
Mm.
forget what I was going to say,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just start singing. Girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes immediately, right?
Love
And
it.
then and then the audience joins in, and
Mm.
it really uplifts them. And then I go
Mm.
back into my presentation. But
Mm-hmm.
that what if is such a real thing. And I think I told you before we started recording that after fracturing my ankle, when I was going to the bathroom, I
Mm-hmm.
had that what if
Yeah.
I fall, right?
Oh.
But I kept telling myself, I'm not going to fall. But then I
Mm-hmm.
also realized if I did fall, I wasn't going to fracture myself, right?
Mm.
Because falling down three little stairs was a
Mm.
very traumatic experience that I had to flip into
Mm.
a positive, that
Yep.
it happened for a reason. And I
Mm.
need to stick around to see what the reason is about and then be on the other side of it to
Mm.
tell others.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Oh, I love that. Yeah, so taking that moment, I love it. And I love too the example that you gave of the stiffness in the ankle, right? Because we can also see there's a mindset shift that happens as well as a body experience. And that we have to work on healing those together in order to have complete healing. Because if you just worked on your mindset and didn't go to physical therapy, ooh, that wouldn't go great. If you just went to physical therapy and didn't have the mindset, you would be still walking around in fear, and fear would rule your life, right? So we want to address both of those at the same time. All right, what do you think? We have one more tip.
We definitely have time for
Okay,
one
all
more.
right, one more tip. So one more tip is catching your thinking. Okay, did you know, Dr. Lisa, that in a second, our brain is taking in 11 million pieces of information? Whoa. Yes, exactly. Chaos is happening up there, right? I'm taking in the smells, the sights, right? The sounds, your sound, also my children in the other room, and the noise of the fan. And I can smell lunch being cooked, right? And I can see all the things in my room, and on and on and on. And so all of these senses and information is being flooded to my brain. Now, what our brain does then is takes that and filters through to 7 to 30 pieces of information. Do you think from going from that 11 million to that smaller number, I might miss a few things? Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's possible, right? And so the goal here is not to always have positive thinking, but the goal is to have accurate thinking. And that can be really freeing for children, especially, but adults too, right? Oh, okay. Like, am I looking back on that situation and having accurate thinking here? Or are there potentially holes in my? And so, catching your thoughts, we say checking for holes, the 5 C's: catching your thoughts, checking for holes, collecting the evidence, right? What can I remember? What maybe did I miss? Challenging the thought if necessary, and then changing, right? Switching that thought to maybe something more helpful.
Oh,
There
I
you
love
go.
all three. I love all three. So much valuable information. So listen, How can our listening viewing audience find you? I know you're in Montana, and I've been to 42 out of the 50 states. I
Yeah.
have not been to Montana,
Girl.
only because, listen, who wants to go from one cold place to another
No,
cold
yeah,
place?
yeah. I was gonna say, come in. Let's see, like June to mid September is your window, and come in those months, and you'll be wow, you'll be blown away. It is gorgeous. But you're right, you don't want to come here right now. It's cold and snowy, and yeah. So, um, let's see. I am, and I'll say too. This is kind of weird. I'm from Southern California, so my license is actually in California, but we live in Montana. So I practice all virtually right now. The best places to connect with me are actually through social media. I am at atara.parkinson on my Instagram, and my business page is just my name, Atara Parkinson. And my website will be up by the time this is launched, and it's been under construction because I've had some changes. But I'm just ataraparkinson.com is where you can find me online.
Not to be confused with Atari, it's
Yes,
Atara.
Atara, Atara, right?
So I want to thank you so much for being the first guest of 2025 in our 30-minute growth session series. The moment I connected with you, I said, uh-oh, parents are, some of them are coming back from vacation, from the holidays, the kids are
Mhm.
going back to school.
Yep.
So many different tips and gems that you've dropped for today. That, listen, folks, the body scan, of course, is
Mm.
my absolute favorite. As a
Mhm.
person who was always on the go, the
Yeah.
body scan literally
Yeah.
causes, anytime someone says body scan, I am just immediately like,
Checking in, checking
immediately,
in.
I
Yeah,
check out.
I love it.
um, and I realized that your body and your mind
Mhm.
need that.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They need
Absolutely.
it.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's I'll just to say real quick, that's something that I do as well is a technique called brain spotting. And brain spotting is using our field of vision to process through a traumatic experience or a negative experience that you are saying, okay, I'm hearing all these tips, but I still can't get my mind to move past this. You probably need something like brain spotting, which is a somatic, meaning it involves the body. We get the body involved, and it also accesses a different part of our brain. So when we're talking, Dr. Lisa, in therapy and talk therapy, we're using our upper brain, our neocortex. But sometimes we need to involve other parts of our brain in order for complete healing. And that's exactly what brain spotting does, is we are able to drop down into our subcortical brain to have whole healing. And so that's something that's really great. And then the other really quick thing I'll say is I give workshops. I give workshops for educators, for parent groups, and children. So if this is just a real small taste of some of the techniques in my presentation. And so if you're hearing these and you're like, whoa, these are so helpful and practical, there's an hour of the I have 3 workshops, and they're each an hour plus long, filled with practical interventions of how do I deal with mindset or anxiety in with my children or even in my classroom.
Oh, I love it. Listen, folks, listen. Look for Artaria Parkinson, Ataria Parkinson,
I love it.
out there in cyberspace. I am pretty sure that there was someone listening or viewing this that said, you know what? I grew up with Atari. I need to get with Ataria.
I love it. Perfect. Wonderful.
Well, everyone, this has been another episode of the 30-minute growth session, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye now. Thank you for joining today's episode of the 30-minute growth session. Growth happens when we take action. So take the insights from today's show and turn them into impact. You're just one step away from the next level. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow together.